Bird photography is one of the most exciting forms of photography when you're out there in nature and capturing different forms of wildlife and especially some of the beautiful birds that surround us. Matt with B&H here, and in this video, I'm going to show you how I use multiple camera systems and much of this gear to capture birds out in nature. So come join us. So first things first, I just want to quickly mention, of course, the best camera is always going to be the one in your pocket. But in bird photography, it's a little bit different because you're going to need a greater focal length for the most part. And for this first part, I want to talk about the full frame systems that I use. The Sony a7R5, it's 61 megapixels. And for things that are close range, I find this to be the perfect system. And I have it paired with the 200 to 600 right now. For bird photography, I find this lens to be really adequate, especially when you add a camouflage. It just ups the game so much more. But actually it helps to, of course, camouflage us in a little bit, and it kind of looks cool, plus the added benefit of protecting the lens. Now this is a variable aperture lens, and for things that are closer range, I love using this fixed aperture at 2.8 70 to 200. This is such a beautiful lens when it comes to the bokeh that you can get out of it. The way it resolves images is just amazing, and it's super sharp. So things that are close range, 70 to 200 is the way to go. And people are often asking, what is a good range for bird photography? And I would always recommend something at 300 mil or even greater. And of course, it always seems that birds are never quite close enough, and we always want a greater focal length. For the most part, if you're exceeding like 800 or something like that, at some point you just have to get closer to the bird. So moving on to when birds are a little bit further than what I can capture on a full frame system, and I just don't quite have that reach. That's where Micro Four Thirds Systems comes in, because it has a 2x crop on what would otherwise be a full frame system. And that's where I love the OM System Camera 1, the OM1 Mark II, capable of 20 megapixel photos. Just zooming into some of the photos that I've gotten with this camera so far, it is very impressive, even at 20 megapixels. And it has a stacked mode with the high-res shot. If I turn that on a tripod, I can get up to an 80 megapixel result, which is super impressive. It's got a bunch of computational modes in it as well, like Live ND, Gradual ND, and so much more. Now, the stabilization on this camera is also really impressive. 8.5 stops of image stabilization, and throughout this series, we're going to be shooting on some boats here and there. It's coming closer. And with bird photography, having a stable camera and a camera with in-body stabilization is so important, because you're shooting at such great focal lengths, and the greater the focal length, the more shake that you're going to introduce into the image. As much as I have, I would say, surgical hands, when you're at such great focal lengths, it's hard to keep the camera still. And from what I've noticed, the OM1 Mark II, paired with their lenses, really handles the stabilization well. So for the most part, I have the OM1 Mark II paired with their 150 to 400 f4.5. This lens is incredible for so many reasons, resolves images so beautifully, and with that kind of focal length, I find myself being able to get so close to these birds and capture just incredible portraits of the birds as well, and a relatively fast lens at f4.5. The stabilization is really quick, and one of my favorite parts about this lens has to be the teleconverter, a built-in teleconverter. So when I'm out in the field, all I do is flick that in and I get times 1.25, which is really helpful to get just a little bit closer to the bird. And I lose a little bit of light in the process, but I still love having that feature. Really unique to OM Systems here, and one of the reasons that the 150 to 400 M Zuiko lens is so impressive. Now, alternatively, this is a more expensive lens. So if you're looking for a cheaper alternative, that's where the 150 to 600 comes in. This is an incredible lens, especially for that reach. You do get the 200 millimeters more than the 400 here, but you don't have that built-in teleconverter. And it's also an external zoom, meaning that it actually fully comes out of its body. whereas this is an internal zoom and you don't have to worry about that. And this one maintains that center of gravity. Another lesser expensive alternative is the 300 Prime. This is an f4 lens, so a little bit better in low light. It's fixed at f4. I love that the lens hood is built in like that, super easy, and I don't have to forget to actually use the lens hood, so that's fantastic. And then the focus ring, I love that you could switch between manual and autofocus really easily, and you could even have a focus distant preset that you could switch to. This lens is perfect for so many different scenarios. It's super lightweight, and yeah, I kind of love it, I'm not gonna lie. And then last but not the least, we have the 40-150 2.8. This is incredibly lightweight, a great focal length range, and at 2.8, really hard to beat a lens like this. Also, that similar focus ring that you could switch between auto and manual. There's so many things I love about the OM system setup that I have in front of me here, but one of the main things is that it's so incredibly lightweight. That's one of the many benefits of the Micro Four Thirds system. Also, these are all weather sealed, and in bird photography, we're often shooting out in the elements, and that's going to be absolutely crucial for something you're looking for when you're looking to purchase gear for bird photography. And lastly, many of these lenses actually have Arca Swiss type built into the foot, and I love that because I don't have to do a foot replacement, and these can slide right onto my gimbal head without any problems. And of course, that's also shared on these two lenses. So one system, Arca Swiss for everything, and yeah, just makes my life super easy. Another way to get closer to birds out in the field is teleconverters. I've got the 1.4 and 2x, and you do lose a little bit of light when using these, so I don't use them all the time. And it's just something you have to decide when out in the field, whether you want to lose light and get closer to your bird, or you definitely need that light if you're already shooting in a low light scenario where maybe a teleconverter isn't the right tool for that scenario. So just something to consider for bird photography. Another accessory is the OM System battery grip for the OM1 Mark II. I love this because it gives me extra battery when out in the field, and I find myself never having to charge this camera throughout the day. And I only have to charge one thing and it'll charge both the battery grip and the camera. There's also some extra custom buttons on the camera because of the grip, and if I need to switch to vertical mode, it makes it that much easier. Tripod is a frequent question when it comes to bird photography, handheld versus tripod. There's a scenario for both, but I love having a tripod with me almost at all times. So I've got an Oben tripod here paired with a Magnus gimbal head. Gimbal heads are great for wildlife photography and bird photography more specifically because it's so much easier to make those micro adjustments. And also it makes it so easy to have big lenses and be able to move them around so quickly. It's also Arca Swiss here, which makes it really easy to slide on my OM System camera. Nice, nice. Now, gimbal heads do have to be balanced, much like your electronic gimbal stabilizers, but once you have it set in the field, you're pretty much good to go, and you can make adjustments on the fly. So I've got two systems here for traveling and carrying around all of my camera gear. And if I'm traveling by plane, I like to carry the Pelican Air Travel case because it's carry-on friendly and I don't really want to check in my camera gear. So this will fit like pretty much all of my lenses. It's got a customizable divider kit here as well that I can change depending on the kit that I'm bringing on a particular shoot. And also I have pretty much anything one would need here. I've got audio gear because I am doing video oftentimes, miscellaneous accessories, a medical kit because I'm a little bit of a klutz when it comes to shooting, not going to lie, but really just for band-aids and whatnot. And I've got my Shimoda filter wrap, which I love. I carry all my lens filters in here, especially for like landscape photography and things like that. And then I've also got an SD card case for various different memory cards. I'm also using these ProGrade 128V90 cards throughout the duration of this shoot in the OM1 Mark II. Makes it super fast, even at 120 frames per second, which is very impressive. So if I'm feeling particularly ambitious that day and I want to carry everything on my back, that's where my Shimoda Action X50 backpack comes into hand, and so much gear fits into this backpack. It's really impressive. It's got a roll top so I can fit even more gear, but I like to throw like a jacket in here just in case, and other little things also go in here as well. I have my Peak Design clip for easy access to another second camera out in the field, especially if I'm shooting bird photography. Sometimes I like to have a second camera here for landscape so that I can always quickly access that and I don't have to change from a massive telephoto lens and potentially miss a bird photograph. One thing that's really impressive about this bag is just the size of lenses that it can hold. I could throw the 150 to 400 in here with the battery grip on without any problem, mounted on the lens. You can see that. Fits in there, even with a laptop, it has no problem. And this is really important to me to be able to fit a lens in here with the camera mounted on it, because when you're out shooting, you want to have your camera easily accessible without having to fiddle around mounting a lens. That's extra time and you could potentially miss a bird photo. And there's room for more, so that's pretty sweet. I'm gonna take some photos. I'm gonna take some snaps. All right, now that we've covered all of the gear that I'm taking along with me for this bird photography series, it's time to actually go out and photograph some birds. So we'll be starting in beautiful New York City at the New York Botanical Gardens. We'll cover all of the basics on bird photography, some of the ethics related to bird photography, how to get out there and actually find birds, and how to get some of your first photos of birds. And then we're gonna head up to beautiful Acadia, Maine. But let us know in the comments below, what is your favorite piece of gear for photographing birds? My name is Matt, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.